Welcome to CAD 1 in SketchUp Web with Mr. L. Today I am going to show you how to create a door for use in the house design project. Let's start by clicking Create New, up here at the top left. This will open a new workspace so we won't clutter up our house build. On the right side of the workspace, click on the Scenes panel. Select Standard View, and then let's choose the South Elevation Front View. Next, select the rectangle tool from the tool tray to the left, or just tap the ARD key. I'm going to use the origin point to start my rectangle, so it sits on the red axis. Click and pull your rectangle up. Just start typing your dimensions, and they will appear in the box to the bottom right of the workspace. I'm going to enter 36, 80, then tap Enter. This represents 36 inches by 80 inches, which is a pretty standard door size. Doors can be anywhere from 24 to 36 inches wide, but smaller doors are best used for closets. I'm going to triple click my door, tap M for the Move tool, then slide it along the red axis to get some space between my door and the faceless ukulele man. Next, select the Offset tool from the tool tray, or simply tap O. Using the Offset tool, I'm going to pull a 1-inch offset to help me remember that the door frame will have a 1-inch lip on both sides and the top. Any design I plan on doing near the edge should be wider than that 1-inch lip, or it won't be seen when the door is closed. Tap the T to activate the Tape Measure tool. I'm going to drop a guideline where the doorknob should go, so I don't forget about its placement when I start my design. Using the bottom edge of the door surface, I'm going to pull the guideline up 36 inches from the bottom. This is the standard doorknob height. Next, I pull a guideline from the left edge of the door and drop it at 3 inches. Placing the doorknob this far from the edge of the door gives comfortable room to use the doorknob without hitting the door frame. Now we have an exact spot for our door handle. Remember, reserve this door handle area when you are creating the design for your door. I try to leave ample space in this area, maintaining a flat plane, so that design elements don't interfere with attaching the door handle. At this point, you need to think about the design for your door. Dropping guidelines, or right-clicking on edges to subdivide them can be very helpful in laying out your pattern. I already have a design idea I'm going to use which seems fairly simple, but I like how it turns out. Just keep in mind, the method I'm going to use is not the only approach to designing a door. The type of door you design depends on your style of build. Since I'm building a modern house, I've decided to go with a lot of basic geometric shapes, employing straight lines and right angles, with a few 45-degree angles thrown in here and there. Here I begin by creating a rectangular area where my door handle will go. Using this rectangle as part of the design element, I tap the space bar to use the Select tool and select the shape it creates. Then I reference this with the Offset tool. I expand upon this shape, pulling larger versions across the surface to create my pattern on the door. Selecting the new outlines, I tap O for the Offset tool and pull 1-inch copies for each of the new panels. This will allow me to use an indented area between each panel. This should add a nice contrast between the alternating materials I plan to use. Indenting each of these 1-inch dividers will also give a nice dimension effect I like to include in my modern doors. Here I begin to lay out a window for my door. This will obviously serve as an exterior door, as most interior doors don't have windows. You can skip this step if you are making an interior door, but I wanted to include it as a reference for anyone interested in adding a window to their door. At this point, I decide to increase the border around the edges of my door. Adding a couple inches on each side will allow a strong border element tying all these panels together. Once I have the guides, I use the rectangle tool to create the new outline. After adding the new border, I need to make my way around the door, erasing the extra geometry from this correction. I also decide to incorporate the rectangle reserved for my door handle into the border. It's time to add our materials. It's a good idea to add materials before you begin to push-pull surfaces. If the materials are added beforehand, when you push-pull, the sides created will take on the same materials as the face they are created by. This saves you time from having to add materials to all the sides created by extruding surfaces. I'm going to use a metal for the door surround. I've been using the aluminum texture for other objects in my house design, so I'm going to carry that over here as well. I'm also going to use a wood material I'm incorporating throughout the house. I chose this wood texture because I like how it has kind of a red tint to it. I'm going to alternate the wood with another material to get the desired effect I'm looking for. In between, I want to use a dark color, maybe something like charcoal, to create a nice contrast between the panels. For these remaining panels, I'm going to go to the tile section of the materials menu to select this black tile I've been using that can actually look like a dark wood. I don't know if you can see it, but this black tile material has squares of different textures within it. I would like to rotate this material so that the squares of texture are at a 45-degree angle, matching the bottom of the window in this panel. To rotate a material on a surface, while the paint bucket tool is equipped, right-click on the material you want to manipulate. When the context menu pops up, at the bottom of the menu, you will see an option for texture. Select this, and a secondary menu will open up off of the texture selection. Choose the top option, Position. A large transparent version of the material appears, covering more than just the area you are painting. But don't worry, it will stay in the lines once you manipulate it. You'll notice your pointer becomes a hand, signaling that you can position the texture in any direction by just clicking and dragging it. You'll also notice red, green, yellow, and blue handles for manipulating the material. These allow you to move, resize, stretch, skew, and rotate the material. I'm going to use the green handle to rotate the material. Click and hold the green handle and move it vertically up or down. When the green handle activates, it places an angle guide where you can snap to common angles in 15-degree increments. You can also type in an angle size if you wish. I want the natural tile grid of this material to run parallel to the bottom of my window, so I reference the 45-degree angle mark on the protractor and release the mouse button. Now I want to adjust the size of the material without skewing or stretching it. This is done by clicking and holding the green handle and moving it closer to the red handle to shrink the material, or away from the red handle to enlarge it. I'm fine-tuning the adjustment, trying to avoid the areas of the material that have a granite texture. With some creative adjustment of the size and placement, you can make a previously unusable material a viable option. I still need to paint the other panel of my door with this tile material. If I tap B to activate the paint bucket tool and click on the blank panel, it will paint the panel with the default material setting instead of what I just adjusted it to. This happens because the last material the paint bucket used was the default black tile material. I need to tell the paint bucket to reference the new settings for the material where I rotated and resized it. I can accomplish this by using an alternate mode of the paint bucket. While the paint bucket tool is activated, tap the Alt key. This activates the Eyedropper mode, which allows you to sample a material and clone it on the next click of the paint bucket. I won't add the glass materials to the windows until later. If I add them now, it can cause issues with push-pulling that become a headache. Before we begin push-pulling our 2D door, we need to think about how thick we want the door to be. Typical residential doors tend to be 1 3/8 inches thick. Doors taller than 80 inches will often be thicker with common dimensions of 1.5 inches or 1 5/8 inches. I like to use thicker doors in my builds because I hate how flimsy typical doors are when builders are cutting corners to save money. It might not be a bad idea to just make it easy on yourself and make your doors an even 2 inches. That's what I'll do with this door. I won't start push-pulling the door to 2 inches because this is only one side of the door. I need to remember that whatever I do will be doubled when I copy and flip the model. I'll start by push-pulling the aluminum surround to 1 inch. This will be the thickest part that, when doubled by the opposite side of the door, will give us our maximum thickness of 2 inches. I'll push-pull the main redwood and black panels 3/4 of an inch, giving them depth and adding another layer to my door. Remember, once you push-pull an object, you can push-pull additional objects the same amount by just double-clicking them. For the window surrounds, I'm going to push-pull them to the same dimensions as the other aluminum surround. I don't have to try to remember what I push-pulled the border to originally. I can simply click to start the push-pull and then hover over the border to reference it, and click while over it. You might notice that when I extruded the window surrounds, the new sides took on the materials of the redwood and black tile. Sometimes that can't be helped. So I just need to tap B to switch to the paint bucket tool, then tap Alt to activate the alternate eyedropper mode. This allows me to sample the aluminum texture without having to go back to the materials panel and hunting down the aluminum sample. Now I just make my way around the window surrounds, reapplying the aluminum material. Finally, I want to push-pull these narrow dividers between the redwood and black tile panels. To add yet another level of dimension to my door, I'm going to push-pull these to 1/2 inch, 1/4 of an inch less than the adjacent panels. If you're wondering why I don't just leave them where they are, to have a nice deep contrast. They are essentially sitting at 0 extrusion, meaning, when I copy and flip this part of the model, both sides will mate up directly against each other. When this happens, SketchUp deletes both surfaces as they try to exist on the same plane at the same time. The last time I did this, it unraveled the universe as we know it, and I had to shunt myself into this alternate time stream that you all exist in. Unfortunately, the Mr. Leopard in this time stream was bald, but what can you do? Am I right? As you can see, I'm cleaning up the model a little bit by using the eraser tool to heal these surfaces into one. It's time to clean up the geometry on the back of our door half. I've gotten into the habit of deleting any geometry that is unnecessary to the model, in the hopes of decluttering and hopefully improving the render. Be careful what you delete. Some of this geometry is the backside of front-facing geometry that is necessary. When deleting, I often do extra orbiting to ensure that there is nothing important behind what I am erasing. Notice that I leave the outer side geometry, as this will serve as 1/2 the outer edge of our door. Just one last step before we clone our door half and make it a solid door. Save yourself from having to model the door handle more than once by modeling it as part of your door half. I do doorknobs less than I do door handles, primarily because they tend to lend themselves to a modern motif more than your typical doorknob. Door handles are also very easy to create and use far fewer polygons, freeing up memory. Tap T for the tape measure tool, and let's redrop our 36-inch door handle reference line. I'll also drop a guideline 3 inches from the door edge. Because I'm using a door handle, my hardware won't sit directly on the 36-inch guideline. I'm going to measure up and down a few inches to map out where I will extrude the handle posts from the door surface. With these new guides, I'll tap C to activate the circle tool. I drag a radius of 1/2 inch to make a 1-inch circle from each guide intersection, then extrude both of these into 2-inch posts. To create the handle portion of this hardware, I need to extrude a cylinder, which is essentially welded to these 2 posts. I accomplish this by creating some simple geometry to place a circle exactly where I need it. First, I tap L to activate the line tool. Using the line tool, I start to reference the edge geometry of this stud's end circle. This tells SketchUp that I need to know where the center of this circle is. Once it spawns the circle center, I click on the center with the line tool, then orbit myself so that I can pull this line along the green axis, which is the orientation of the stud. I create a 3/8 inch line and keep my line attached to make the vertical segment. To make sure I am drawing the line perfectly on the vertical blue axis, I tap the up arrow on the keyboard, which locks this line's movement to the blue axis. Now I simply move my line tool over to reference the top edge of the aluminum panel my handle is mounted to, and click. Tap Escape to disconnect your line. It's a good idea to orbit when you've drawn something like this to verify that you actually drew the lines on the correct axis you intended to. I have the crude framework, I need to place the handle exactly where I want it. Tap the C key to activate the circle tool once again. I place the circle directly on top of the framework, then I make sure the circle tool turns blue, confirming that the handle will extrude along the blue axis. If you have trouble getting the circle to turn blue, simply tap the up arrow key. I pull the circle, and now I'm ready to extrude the handle using push-pull. You'll notice there are small gaps between the studs and the handle. I'm simply going to zoom in by rolling the mouse wheel until I can access a flat part of the stud. Then I tap P for push-pull and extrude the stud far enough to fully connect the two cylinders. I'll tap B real quick, hit Alt, then sample the aluminum and paint my new door handle to match the rest. Now we need to weld these studs to the door handle. This is a new skill we haven't covered yet. To weld separate pieces of geometry, first they need to be either connected or intersecting each other, kind of like clipping in a video game. Single, double, or triple click each entity that needs to be welded. Don't forget, if you need to select more than one thing, select the first, then hold down the Control key as you continue to select additional geometry. Once everything that needs to be welded is selected, right-click on one of the selected entities. A context menu will pop up, and you need the choice, Intersect Faces. This option is about midway down the menu. Expand this option by clicking the arrow, and select the choice called with selection. Depending on how many entities you are welding, this can be instantaneous, or it may take a moment. Once it completes, you should see lines appear where the entities connect. Finally, I'm going to purge some extra geometry inside the door handle where we welded it together. I hold down Shift and tap X to activate the X-ray view, orbiting to a good angle so I don't accidentally erase extra geometry. I tap E to activate the eraser and erase the unnecessary geometry hiding within the handle. Keeping a clean model not only helps preserve memory, but it also makes it easier to 3D print your renders. Hold down Shift and tap X again to turn off X-ray vision. It's time to finish up our door. We are finally ready to copy our door half and finish this up. Triple-click the door to select all geometry. Tap the M key for the Move tool, and I'm going to grab this corner of the door. Start moving it, then tap Control to make a copy. I move it over, giving myself some space to flip the geometry. If I simply rotate the copy of my door half, it will place the handle on the opposite side of the door. Instead of rotating, I'm going to tap the S key to activate the Scale tool. This places a yellow bounding box with green handles around the entity. By selecting one of these handles, it allows you to morph the entity by scaling it, stretching it, or shrinking it. If I grab the middle handle on the outside of the door and push it into itself, it creates a mirror copy. Keep an eye on the dimensions box in the lower right corner. The target measurement for a perfect mirror copy is -1.00. We've got a perfect mirror copy, so let's put them together, make it a component, and Bob's your uncle. Triple-click the mirror copy to select all geometry, tap M for the Move tool, grab it by a good connection point, and let's join our two halves. Almost forgot to place the glass in the windows. Tap the B key to activate the paint bucket and navigate to the glass section of the Materials panel. To choose a transparent material, look for materials that appear to have two shades, separated by a diagonal line. I usually use the black-gray choice. Paint the opaque window surfaces with the glass material, and now we can see through them. Once we get rid of these dividing lines where we join the halves, we'll have a solid door. Finally, select the entire door, right-click on the selected door, and when the context menu pops up, select the choice Make Component. Type in the name of your component, then select Create. Congratulations! You've made a component you can use in your builds, and you can even share it with the 3D warehouse if you wish. This has been a CAD 1 SketchUp tutorial by Mr. O, creating a door component. Some of the keyboard shortcuts in the video may not work for you because I've created my own binding. I have included a PDF in the video notes below, outlining all my bindings. If you found this video to be helpful, drop me a comment. If I find there is enough interest, then I'll plan on following up with some more videos. like creating door frame components, cutting doors, adding another story to your house build, and more. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any suggestions for further tutorials, drop me a comment. Feel free to leave questions, requests, or a like. Thanks again, and God bless.